This video is, as you may have seen in the titles, about the stools that I make and my processes for making this design, and gotten a lot of really good positive feedback on it. I get a lot of 5-star reviews from my customers and repeat buyers on these, and I just wanted to share it. I get a lot of questions about how I make them, how I get them to look like they do. They have a bit of a unique feature of these neat little, the through tenons. They have the nice little cute little rounded corners that match the rounding of this, and people have asked how I get that. It's actually easier. That's why I do it. Well, I did it originally, and I realized it was sort of serendipitous. I just discovered it, that it was the same rounding as the softened edges. This one is for a customer. It is custom height, 17 inches tall, that they wanted, so they can use it in the shower and comfortably sit. Cypress, very nice. I have some Spanish cedar little wedges in there to provide a nice contrast with its end grain. This piece of cypress had some nice coloration in it, even a bit of ambrosia there. Lots of nice wabi-sabi. Got my grains lining up here, looking good. And got these making a nice circle here, the end grains. Just nice. This little bugger is mine. Very special piece of wood that I had originally gotten for another project. And my wood guy up in Amish country, Mr. Yoder, he spotted this for me. Asked me if I wanted it. I couldn't turn it down. It was too beautiful. And it sat here for a long time. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want to cut it up into smaller pieces. I wanted to be able to showcase that it was a really nice wide piece of wood. I think it was only about an inch wider than this. I preserved most of the width. That's my standard medium size, 12 by 12 by 9, I believe. And just really nice. Just really nice. Maple wedges in it. Came out really good. 2 of the stools I make in this video are that size. This has a lacquer finish on it because it's mine. I'm not using it in the shower. This actually is used to hold up some of the boxes that I make for photoing. And so that's how this one is. I actually used my template on this one because the piece of wood was barely big enough to make this size stool, and I didn't want to try to lay that out on the machine because, as I mentioned in the video coming up, when you set something on this machine right here and you tell it to go, it's going to cut. And just like table saw, if you didn't program it right, if you didn't set the width right on the table saw and you run the board through, if you cut off too much, you're done. This is even worse. You don't tell it right, it's going to do exactly what you told it to do. And if you told it the wrong thing, it's going to do the wrong thing and turn your piece of wood into scrap. I've made a lot of scrap on that machine. But that's okay. Got to be bad for a while before you're good, right? So anyway, this is the template that I use. It's essentially that same system, but in template form. That's for handles in the top in case somebody wants a hole cut in the top as a handle. These are used, and you see the spacing is different here, right? This is a template for doing medium stools. You see my mortises. I just line up there, clamp this down, cut the holes. The same there. These tenons are cut at the tops of the legs. I just center that on my piece of wood, follow that with a pattern bit, and then I can make the same sort of cutout that the machine does, except I can put this really close and do some things. I've also thought about mass producing these and offering them to woodworkers that want to use this system, but they don't have a CNC because they're $5,000 for one. But just haven't offered that yet. I'm not sure how I want to present that. But anyway, medium, custom, and this one I've already shipped the 3 stools that I make in this video. Got a 5-star review on the oak one already, really nice, and hope to get similar on the others, though most people I don't hear back from. Hope you enjoy the video. It is a long one, but I'm not trying to cut things down. I'm just putting out content. The channel got a little bit of traction, so I'm just trying to keep posting content. I'm thinking the next video, I'm probably going to show how I can use this to make these and shelves and also other things like boxes. The system can be used to make a lot of really cool stuff, and I like that I thought of it. It's made things. These are set to use standard 3/4 inch material, right? So just work really good. Anyway, enjoy, and thanks for watching. So the first thing we're going to do to get started is we got the blanks, the pieces of wood that will go on to CNC. These are those. I have a piece of walnut, oak, and cypress. I currently have 3 orders for stools. 1 small walnut stool, 1 medium oak, and 1 medium cypress. And they're due out at different times, but I'm gonna go ahead and get them all knocked out. So I'm gonna set up on my Axiom back there. And it's been a great boon to our business. It's allowed us to do things that we couldn't do normally. Well, you can do those things, right? But they cost a lot more, like engraving signs for people and things like that people like now. So just a great tool for woodworking, just like the table saw was when it came out. Great tool for woodworking, especially the programmable kinds with the little fence on them that tells you how wide your board's going to be without having to actually whip out a tape measure. So, and I'm going to get the first board of these 3 on the machine, and then we'll run the tool path and cut out some parts. And I'll get some footage of that. It's cool. And there is our parts for 1 small stool. What do you think, Betty? Is it good? Just she says it's good. So that's what they look like. I placed that out, those tool paths out in the software that we use that runs the machine. And that gets me parts cut to a depth, not all the way through, You could use a template, you could use a set of templates, and I've thought about offering that to woodworkers on the website. I'm still considering that. I haven't heard any interest in it. But anyway, there's a lot of work left to do on this, and we'll go through that. And I'll show you that next after I cut out some more parts for other stools. So much to do. Man, look at that. It's a digital zoom. There we are. There's the parts in cypress for the medium stool. Again, only to depth. We got a lot of work to do still. But good placement on that edge. One thing about CNC work, you tell this thing to start and it goes. If you messed up, it's scrap. Usually a lot of it. You know, during the time that it was running, I prepped these for the router table so they can be flush trimmed out. I'll have to drill these all the way through, as well as drilling these out and then flush trimming them out all the way through. And I prepped the next piece of oak that goes on the CNC. And there it is. Exact same tool path on just a different piece of material. Good fit left to right. Again, cut to depth, so we still have work to do to cut these out. Cut them out with a flushing bit that I have set up in my router table. While this was preparing itself, I cut out those, rough cut. You see where the flushing bit's gonna go around. We'll do that. Probably do that tomorrow because it's late. It's dark outside, so I think I'm gonna call it a day. Probably get in here decent time tomorrow. Get started cutting these up, and I got and we'll go from there. So we'll see you tomorrow morning. Nighty night. Alrighty. I've got all my parts cut out back here on the bench. You can see, got the oak one, and then the walnut and the cypress over here. Next step is to drill out my relief holes and the mortises. Now, On these, I don't really worry about tear out on the backside. As you might have noticed, this is rough cut lumber. This is not 4S, it's not even 2S. I use it full thickness and I get my part cut out and all this tear out that I might get, and you know, just the imperfections in the wood. I sand this in my drum sander down to the thickness that fits those mortises. So the tenons at the top fit into the mortises. The tenons on this then will fit into the mortises in the legs, and the tenons in the legs will fit in the mortises in the top. So that's how I do that. And there's always just enough thickness to not really have to worry about the tear out that's caused when these blow out the back. So I'm going to keep going. I'm using a backer on the walnut because this is 2S material, so it's already really close to thickness. I don't have a lot of room to correct any tear out, so I'm using backer on these holes. To the router table. All right. Hold on. Just a second. Love that dust collection. So there's my stack of parts piled on my sander. So now we sand them to thickness. And there's a couple of places, well, one in particular I can show you. One of these mortises has some bad tear out right there on that hole. You can see it there. But with the thickness that we take out of this material, we're going to straighten it, right? It's going to be flattened in the sander, and then I'll just take more off that side with the tear out and work it all out. So I'll set up for that, and we'll do that next. All right, I've got the sander set up, and I got all my parts sorted out. I've still got some scrap. I'm gonna start with the thickest stuff I have, which is this old oak. I'm gonna sand that first because it's thicker than this cypress. And then once I get down to that thickness, I'll start running the cypress through. And then as I get toward the final thickness that I need, it'll be time to run the little walnut baby through, because again, it's really close to thickness already. 30 minutes later, we have all the pretty parts. Nice, they fit for thickness now, you see there? So they know they fit that way. And we know based on the tool path, the template, that they fit this way. Now, I'll tell you what I do. Instead of squaring off the corners in these holes with a chisel, I just round these guys off with a round over bit. And since I round over all the edges on everything, kind of soften those up with the same bit, actually kind of goes well together. So it's a pretty neat thing. And I've gotten a lot of compliments on the rounded through mortises. It's a unique look. So anyway, got to set up for that now at the router table, so I'm going to do that. Took a piece of scrap that was cut off of these, and I got my round over bit set so that it's just right. It was a little deep here, but it rounds the edges over just so now. And so I'll do that on one of these. So there they are, corners rounded, and we have a lot of sanding to do. I'm not going to record that. Anyway, see you then. After a considerable amount of sanding, we get the dry fit. You can see we are exactly same height. These parts are all interchangeable because they're all cut on the machine. Or if I'm in the mood to use one of the templates that I made on the machine, if I'm really tight on the piece of wood that I have. Coming out nice, looking like little torii gates, little Japanese style going there. And a little bit more work and final assembly. Oh, you scared me. All right, you ready? All right, new dawn, new day. Shop assistant has had her breakfast. Man, shaved, better. So last night got all the parts sanded 120, wet it, stood up the grain, and then went to 220. So we're nice and buttery smooth. Oh, hey, that's nice. So next, actually because of the finish I put on these, we're very nearly done. We're gonna cut into here. I have a special little stop for that for my crosscut sled. I pre-made all manner of tenon wedges. Just to keep them on hand. I have a jig that I use on my sander to make those. Goes against the disc like this, and is you know, all makes my little wedges for me. That's really handy to have when you have to make that many wedges all the time. Let's go. This is going to be interesting because I'm going to put this on the table saw so you can see it. See, I made that just to make that process so that I didn't have to eyeball each one. It works good. Since I put an oil and wax sort of traditional finish on them, because they're actually shower stools, so they're meant to be used in showers. I mean, if my customer says, hey, I want to, you know, I'm using this for a nightstand, whatever, which I've had before, I'll lacquer them on request for a small additional charge, of course. And that's why I have these. These are masking plugs that I made. You can see the finish on them. These fit in the mortises so that I can lacquer the pieces. I tape up the tenons and I put these in the mortises and I spray them with lacquer, and then when I assemble them, I can still get glue on the outside of the tenon and inside the mortise. And then I just do some touch-up after flushing and sanding. So now it's time for dry assembly. Actually, this will be the final assembly on these, and then so we'll do that now. Also, let's see if I can get all this in here. iPhone. So I got two medium stools here, one made out of cypress and one made out of oak, and then of course the small walnut one. But since they're all cut on the same pattern, I could use, say, cypress seat and cypress brace with you know, oak legs as a complement, or do oak with walnut seat. If, you know, I could do that. I haven't had any requests for that, but I also don't have any pictures for it on my Etsy page, and I found that it's just harder for some people than it is for others to visualize what something like that would look like, so they don't understand that I could do that. And I haven't really put it out there, so just trying to keep this product simple as a product. But the way that I have these tool paths designed in Vectric is that you can see, for instance, that this lines up with this, right? So it can go in there. And but this leg, they use the same tenon. So what I do in the software is I just spread these out. And then on the other end of the software, I spread these out on the seat part. And so it's a completely modular sort of joinery system. And I've used it to make sort of boxes as well. So shelving, it works great. And it's a really versatile little system. So assembly, one of the things I like to do is I like to be mindful of the grain and how the board was, because I place out the parts in the tool path to sort of allow for a grain cohesion. So I put these, I decide, okay, what do I want to the outside? Those look like good outsides. And the grain is like this on these pieces. I'm out of focus, I'm out of frame. There we go. So the grain is like this in these. So then I take this one and I want it to do the same, so that visually we have a similar thing. Actually, I think I'm going to go the other way, because I have this little bit of natural schmutz and I want that to be down. So I'm going to go with the grain this way, all the way. And then, so I stand that up, put that in, check that visually. Looks pretty good. How the grain somewhat And then this goes into here, like so. Now since my grain is doing this, I do that with that as well. And I got a good, really nice hero face there. There you go. Yeah. It's so nice. Look at that grain line match up. Subtle touch, but I like to do things like that. Now, just a quick little mention. When I make sure that the grains are going the same way, I get this nice sort of circle in the end grain sometimes. And if these are switched, it's a nice, it's an opposing sort of, so this would be parentheses, and then the other way it would go this way. So I never really have them facing the same way. I either get them facing each other or facing away, just so that it adds to the symmetry of the piece. And the grain in here swoops up, and the grain here, if I can. On this, one may face this way and the other may face the other if I have a blemish, some wabi-sabi in the wood. Like this piece goes up. This one's coming down because there's a bit of natural wabi-sabi, a bit of perfect imperfection in the creation of this piece of wood. So I work with that and just let them oppose. I only put glue inside these wedges because a wedge tenon, a functional wedge tenon, doesn't really need glue, especially if it's going to get wet, because that end grain will soak up so much water that as it gets wet, it'll actually get tighter, and the wood will swell inside that hole and even make it stronger, tighter over time. But I put a little bit of Type Bond 3 in there just to, bond it, and the Type Bond 3 so that it's moisture resistant. Nothing's waterproof, only water resistant to a degree. Yeah. See if I can get this thing to see what I do with that. I hope this works. We'll see. I may end up knocking the camera off. It's a lot of banging, but I'll show you how to do this. I'm putting walnut wedges in the oak stool. I try to match hardness with the contrast of the wedges. So what the hell? Anyway, so dusty life. So like walnut with oak or maple. Got the maple wedges ready for the walnut. For the cypress stool up here, I was going to use Spanish cedar, but which is fine. But I've got some aromatic red cedar wedges I'm going to use with that. So we get contrast, but we get the same sort of ballpark hardness, so that when we go to sand these flush, we don't end up with high spots, low spots between the hardwood and the softwood. So I'm gonna go ahead and start hammering these in. I'll show you how to put the glue in, and then yeah, let's get started. All right, there they are in the frame. $3. You can see how that wicks down inside there. Take my pre-made little wedges here. Put one there and one there. A little bit of dead blow, and you'll see how these gaps begin to disappear. That's it there. And then I like to get a bit of a toothbrush and water and get this all off of here. And this actually works if there's any other gaps, which I don't usually have, but if there are any in there, then it swells that up and that glue seeps down in there and gets that done really fast. Camera almost fell off and I almost didn't notice. A little bit of this, wipe that dude up. Also like to get some squeeze out and some drip down here, so we got to change angles for a minute. So you can see in here we got some squeeze out. Get on that really fast. Line right there. Scroll that off. We got some here as well. Also that we're tight up in here, and if we're not, we want to just do a block tap right there to bring that down. Once that's brought down and tight, then it won't bounce back up. So now we got the first one done. We'll go on to this one. We're doing the same thing. Copious amounts of glue, and you can see how that glue goes in there and it seeps all up in through that joint if I put enough in. And I make sure that it overflows the sides, and this way it clings down the walls as the capillary action sort of pulls that down in there. And almost like CA glue does, but on a macroscopic level. It's like an enormous magnification of what CA glue does. Now, those of you who know how wood works, you know I've seen splits here. This is probably, these tenons are in here a little sideways, but it works. It just works. I used to put these a lot closer to the edge, and I had to learn the hard way to push them in, because that much outward pressure, too close to an edge, will cause a split in the wood. But I've carefully coerced the size of these wedges over the 3 years that I've been making these stools to not do that. And I've gone through subtle design changes to sort of eliminate that. And you can see we have these now, they're both in. Wet up here. Now, set you over here, and you can see our squeeze out. We didn't get a lot on the outside, so good. I can usually just kind of wipe that right out. That's done there. It's on the inside. And the seam looks tight, so I don't need to bang it down any. Bring that glue across with that water. And if there is any gap, it'll let a little bit of watery glue seep in there. A little bit more on. That's it on how that goes together. And we just repeat all of these like that. All right, so I got everything glued up. They are. And you can see they look a little rough, but that's okay, because I'm gonna flush them out once the glue dries. And so now we just wait on that. Waiting for glue to dry is half my life. So I'm gonna take a break. Go wipe the sweat off my brow. Maybe have a bit of tea or something. All right, so the glue's dry. Now what to do with these? I have a Suizan Cookie Hiki. Love these things. 0 offset. It's very important in this process. But I also have this and, you know, a flush cutting bit. So I'll show you what I do. Look down here. There you go. So I'll take the Kugi Hiki and I cut off the tall parts because I use this to flush out the rest of it, right? So, but that is in the way of this. So you can see how that won't go, right? If that's down in there, it won't. It doesn't work well. I would jack it around, but it's just easier just to quickly cut these off at flush with the top of these. And now it's below the 1/4 inch thickness of this sort of guide template that I have that just allows me to get a router bit down in there. And you know, I should probably make one out of 1/2 inch thick material. That way I don't ever have to worry about this. But you know, it works like this. I've actually used the saw to just cut these flush before, but I just don't get as good a result on this end grain. Even if I pick up a new $20 little Kugi Hiki, just doesn't cut as well, and sometimes the blade deflects down into the end grain. Even if I cut from all sides, it'll sometimes deflect. So I just do it this way now. So I put this here, put that there. This is already adjusted to the height. Actually, glad I tested it. And we turn that on and watch this. Go down a little more. And sand the rest. And there we go. So I'm going to repeat that on the other ones, and we'll get them done and then start the sanding. that's the end of those. We got all of this done. I'm going to clean up. It leaves a bit of a mess of stuff everywhere. So I'll clean up and start that. Okay, so my sander ready. Went back to 120 from 220 because this is ingrained. It's gonna, you gotta wear it down. So I'm gonna get these knocked off here, and then I kind of use a little wax pencil to mark around it, just so I don't, you don't want to create a divot, right? You want it to be relatively flat. I mean, you're going to lose perfect flat unless you, treat it like a slab table or something, and put a floating router kind of thing over the top and shear it all off and then sand it smooth. So I do this. That way I can see around the edge here where the pencil goes in, right to the edges, and just kind of make sure I take the same amount off everywhere. Just how I do, not how to do. Just how I do. You do you. Look there, fella, ain't that pretty? It's nice. That's kind of what I'm going for. And then I'll wet this. Got my red hot. So let's see. You see? A little bit of a preview of what that looks like when it's oiled and waxed really good. But this will pop the grain again. 220 that. Well, while that's drying, get these guys. On the legs, I kind of go about halfway up. Get them level, kind of fade that. And then when I hit the 220, I go all the way up. Not brushing against the top edge, but almost to it. And then fade that down with the 220. And I have good results from that. If you know a better way, let me know. I'm not stuck on this. I've changed this several times. Let's see. I got my own tool tip here. I'll show you what this leaves. It leaves a little bit of a... Come here and look. See that? Let me see if I can get it, since Apple can't let me reverse the camera. So you can see all the little... Yeah, like where it's right up against. And I can sand until that kind of goes away. And I know when I'm like right at it, don't go any further and start doing more even at that point. So I can grind these down without causing a sort of a peak around it, so level it back out. Pretty. It's not quite ready yet. And there they are. Catch a little rake light on there. You can still make them out if you really look, but it's pretty smooth and we don't see any waviness, at least not enough to matter to any difference. I get really good feedback from my customers on these stools, guys. I mean, they really like them a lot, and I'm very proud of this. I mean, it's a really simple design. I'll include some, we'll oil them up, and I'll get some footage of that. That's always nice, you know, the oil hits that. I use a butcher block treatment, just the Howards. Buy it at Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon, anywhere else in the freaking world. But I'm gonna get these knocked out, and then we'll show some money shots of the oil going on there. It'll be nice. 'Twas the moment of truth. Now the stools are done. We have to grease them down now. So again, just Howard's butcher block conditioner. It's nice stuff. I'm gonna shake it up. So I start on the inside and the bottom. I keep this brush around, it's primed with this stuff. So let's see. I like to do this on my router table because I get oil and wax on my router table, and then I wipe up the excess and keeps it nice and slickery. See how we do. Watch this. Look at that, man. And right now I just slather this stuff on and let it soak. So this is the wax on, wax off. Look at that. See that curl in there? Shine. Too much rake light. But yeah. Get it on there nice and liberally. And then later, once this dries, we'll polish it up, box it up, send it to our customer. With that, that's how we do that. This white oak with its long bits there, its long little fibers. Just brilliant. Just brilliant. Greasing it down. Grease it down, man. Wax on. Wax off. Good old Miyagi treatment here. Some Goju Ryu style. Great stuff. Look at that, man. Isn't that great? Whoosha!